My name's Anna Findlay, and talk about how our engagement process for new academics works at La Trobe and how these connections create simple advocacy and goodwill for our library. So a bit of context, we support academics with research and teaching and student learning. At La Trobe, we specialise our support with research in one team and teaching in the other. Within our two teams, we're college aligned and we have assigned discipline areas that are across multiple campuses. So we were previously in two different teams, but as of October 2019, we're aligned into the new academic outreach and engagement team. So I'm Anna, and I'm in the learning and teaching team, supporting the arts, social sciences and commerce college. My liaison areas are the La Trobe Business School, the Tertiary Preparation Program, and some miscellaneous multidisciplinary subjects. And Linda's going to introduce herself now too.
Thanks, Anna. And I'm Linda Whitby. I'm in the Research Partnerships team, which comprises of 10 staff of various full and part-time fractions. I specifically support the ASK College like Anna does, but I also work across the SHE College, which is the Science, Health and Engineering College. And I tend to focus a fair bit of my time on the School of Education. So the aligning of our teams under the new library structure last year has offered the opportunity to better coordinate our existing process and to make it more efficient for our smaller teams, which is what we'll be speaking about today.
So our library's outreach and engagement framework defines library outreach and engagement as proactive, resulting in collaborative professional relationships based on La Trobe values. So engagement is everyone's business. It's not just up to one person. We all need to advocate for our services. By engaging with new staff proactively, it offers us an opportunity for our teams to highlight the support that we offer academic staff and to promote our services and spaces to everyone, and that includes professional staff. We've developed a coordinated and personalised approach for welcoming all new staff to the university, and this includes academics, which includes casual, sessional and honorary staff. It includes graduate researchers, masters, PhD, research students, postdoctoral students, and professional staff. So everyone's probably making new academic staff welcome in one way or another in your various institutions, but we thought it might be useful to highlight how we do it systematically as a whole of library approach and just some of the details of how it works for us. Linda and I inherited this process, so we'll also talk a little bit about how we adapted it to suit the changes to our teams.
Anna, you just need to share the PowerPoint, please.
Sorry. It's the same slide, luckily.
Thank you.
All right, sorry. Can you see that now?
That's fine.
Fabulous. Okay. So what do we do? I'm just going to talk a little bit about our process. So we arranged to get a monthly list from our planning and institutional performance unit. That includes data out of the various systems. It includes everyone that's been given a staff profile, even if they're unpaid, like honorary or graduate research students. It includes emails, departments, titles. I've just blurred this image. It's quite a big list. It's really quite difficult to look at. So what we do next is we sort and organise the list to include only the most useful information for the library team members that need to look at it. So you can see we use a bit of colour coding. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for library staff. So what info do they really need? We had previously sent out an email listing details of all new staff, but this was really time consuming and not very sustainable for us to do that. Linda came into the process last year and she had fresh eyes and questions. She was like, how can we make this quicker? Why did we need that there? So once we've got this list, we assign a senior library learning advisor or a senior library research advisor to each academic. Then we send a copy of the modified list to library staff. The research team contacts all graduate research students, honorary staff, and staff with research-only profiles. The learning and teaching team emails all learning and teaching and research staff, teaching focus staff, and casual academics because they're usually sessional teachers. When it's a teaching and research staff, we include the senior research advisor in the conversation and in the meeting if possible. Okay, so what do we hear back? Once we get a response from the academic, our initial meeting is tailored to the academic's most pressing needs. For example, they might want to learn EndNote, they might be interested in what facilities they can access. If they've got different needs that cross different library teams, we will invite that team member. So for example, if an academic wants information about textbook purchasing, we'll ask someone from the resources team to come with us. If something comes up during the meeting, we'll refer to another team member after the initial meeting. But it's always a case of giving them the details of a specific team member for support. So library staff then update a central spreadsheet so that we can keep track of when the initial contact was made, any response and any notes. We also follow up if we don't hear back within a couple of weeks by email or with a phone call. Sometimes that still doesn't elicit a response, but often they're just too busy when we first emailed them. So some of the technical details, what do we use? We just use software and systems that are easily accessed within our institution. We didn't have to invest anything, and no new training was required. So data, we used a shared drive for our working documents, SharePoint library site to share the master spreadsheet. We use, oh yes, that's right, sorry. We recommend library staff use mail merge to send bulk emails with a personal touch. And we've actually provided some training in that. We have been using Zoom to meet with colleagues or academics based at other campuses, or sometimes we would previously have requested a colleague at that campus to go and talk to the academic in person. So currently, while we're working at home, we're using email, softphone, Zoom, and Microsoft Teams to engage with new and existing academics while we're working from home. And I'm just going to pass over to Linda.
Thanks, Anna. So a new process always is going to bring challenges, especially with everything changing around us. But there's also a lot to be learned from this experience. So firstly, the matter of time and timeliness. So this process was changed rather quickly following our realignment and some staff change. There was a danger that we would get bogged down in procedure while lists of new staff piled up, which would mean that we would miss our chance to strike, so to speak. So as soon as we had our new discipline allocations, we rolled out this process so that the teams could get on with it. We also needed to communicate expectations that new staff would be contacted in a timely manner. And we have the support of our coordinators to make sure that that happens. So another challenge was usability. Like Anna mentioned, I came into the process with new eyes and asked some hard questions, but thankfully Anna was open to change. And we spent some time deciding how we could make the process easier for the library staff to get the information quickly. We considered this from a user perspective. So thought about how to order the columns, how to avoid scrolling, and even bringing in colour as a visual cue. We asked ourselves, what information do staff really need to be able to effectively outreach to their discipline areas? This made it easier for everyone to take responsibility for engaging, following up, and recording of statistics. Next, we thought about training needs. In two multi-campus teams located around the state with different learning styles, we agreed to empower the staff and allow them to understand the process using short introductions and run-throughs in team meetings to make sure everyone was ready to roll. We created cheat sheets on using filter and sort in Excel, as we didn't know who was familiar with this or not, and invited staff to approach us if they needed more help. So this was instead of running a full double team meeting or training session, because we realised that everyone was very busy and settling into their new roles. So another challenge was considering the multiple stakeholders. This spreadsheet is used by multiple people. So again, with two different teams coming together from different reporting lines with different managers, we had to make sure that we included each other in conversations and advocated for each other's services. Being transparent with the rest of our team about why we needed to make changes to the process meant that people were more open to the changes that we were making. And lastly, we needed to consider the challenge of different ways of working. Our teams work differently. So figuring out how our newly aligned bigger team could work together and share responsibility so that it doesn't fall onto just one or two people was an important challenge to overcome. So we are still learning, and our shift to working from home and the current situation university-wide means a heightened level of sensitivity is required in this whole process, especially when it comes to contacting of staff. So a process like this is going to impact both the library and the people that we are reaching out to. And sometimes we can't be exactly sure what impact that will be. So for our colleagues in the library, there's been a raising of institutional awareness. This process has provided a more efficient and easy way for library staff to find out who's new in their discipline area that they might not know about, or in their college, or key appointments in other departments we might want to develop relationships with. It's helped us all be more organised and more accountable, and Anna and I can promote timeliness of contact by getting lists out every month in a timely manner. And by coordinating our approach, we also are bombarding new academics with a confusing amount of emails from the library. Ultimately though, the main impact of this whole process in contacting all new staff is that it gives everyone a person that they can come back to for help. And having that has been huge, especially over the last 2 months. All staff have a library contact. We find that even if they don't reply to us straight away, it is this email that they use to get in touch with us, sometimes even months down the track. And with this connection that we've established, we've also found that these new staff are promoting our services to their colleagues who may not know or have been around long enough that they've simply forgotten what the library can do for them. This advocacy generates further work for our teams without us needing to make explicit contact. We also develop contacts with professional staff who in turn advocate for our services to others. This also makes us more connected with what other parts of the uni do, so we know who does what when those questions arise. So the Research Partnerships team, which is the team I'm in, has seen this impact in a few interesting ways. We're finding that our graduate researchers, so that's the Masters by Research and the PhD students in particular, appreciate outreach from someone other than their supervisor, which reinforces their connection to the university and they feel a bit isolated. For some of them, we've been one of their only proactive contacts of the uni outside their supervisor. Our consults make us that friendly face and they're comfortable asking us those silly questions at the start of their candidature. They're also telling their supervisors how great we are. Also, when we provide researchers with a rave report on their metrics and attention that they can use for grant applications, we often get requests from their colleagues who have seen the report and would like one too. There's also a mental health and care aspect to what we do, especially at the moment. Giving staff someone that they feel comfortable approaching for help can open doors to other contacts and support networks that they may not be aware of. It's actually been quite lovely having Zoom consults with new staff at this time. There's this common ground where all the conversations start off with, how are you going at the moment? What's it like working from home? And because we're all navigating these times, you can just see that they're quite appreciative of what we're doing and the effort that we're making. I'll just hand over to Anna now to talk about it from her point of view, from teaching partnerships.
Thanks, Linda. So from the teaching partnership side, we've found that staff are really relieved to find that there's someone to help them navigate new systems such as reading lists, or direct them to other teams for support, especially if they've started and a week later they've got to start teaching a new subject, or they've got to change resources on the reading list, that sort of thing. Our connections with these new academics also offers the opportunity to develop champions for the work that we do. And Linda's mentioned it a little bit about that, telling others what we do. So by building those relationships at the start, it contributes to an overall trust in our expertise. They're a lot more likely to ask us a question around whether we can be involved in information literacy instruction in their subjects. They might ask us to participate in their LMS forums, and they often become a contact, the first person they might ask if they don't know who to ask about something.
So it's always great to get feedback on what we do, and many reflect this personal approach that we provide. So here's just a small example of some responses we've received from new staff, both professional and academic. And it is a common theme. Thanks for your email. It's great to have a contact. I'll be in touch when I need help. Thanks for this. It's awesome. I had no idea this existed. Really valuable stuff. And I've been really struck by the very personable manner in which resources and support have been brought to my attention since starting. It's been a very busy year to date. Our records show that our newly aligned team has greeted 470 new academics, graduate researchers and honorary staff with an initial email. So our Learning and Teaching Partnerships team have conducted 40 new staff consultations, and our team members in Research Partnerships have averaged about 8 to 10 consults with new staff each during this period. And the thing is that many of them come back with more questions or requests after that first session.
This proactive approach to engagement helps us develop those connections with the new academic staff and to build partnerships across the university. These existing relationships have made it easier for us now to reach out to academics to support them and their students as they've moved to online teaching. And their trust in our expertise is reflected in them promoting library services, such as online drop-ins for students. Our relationships with other professional staff and other divisions allow us to share our expertise and advocate for each other's services, especially now when we get teaching staff ringing the library staff and saying things like, well, how do I record my Zoom? We know who to send them to.
So from a research partnerships perspective, this outreach allows us to connect with and support researchers in their areas of passion. In the juggle of teaching and research, once they are aware of our services, they come to us for assistance, highly appreciative of what we can provide. They also often speak to their colleagues about what we can do, for example, with raves. So through word of mouth, we generate more patronage. On the other hand, our graduate researchers appreciate having a personal contact point. This has made it easier for us to engage with them while the library is closed and let them know the services available to support their research. They see us as a friendly, helpful face that has made an effort to get in touch, and they often come back to us throughout their candidature. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Interesting presentation. It's nice that you have such a personal touch, I think. We've got a fair few questions come in, and please feel free to still put questions into the chat. The first one is from Carmel. Do you have a standardized template for the initial contact? If so, is it tailored for the research focus or the learning, teaching and research focus?
We have both. So we've got a set of different template emails. One of them is for teaching and research academics, so academics on our spreadsheet that are noted as being employed as teaching and research, and that will say, I understand you're employed as teaching and research. What are you focusing on at the moment? Obviously a little bit more formal. If it's a teaching focused staff member, we'll give a few links to our teaching support page. Likewise, if it's a research staff member, we'll give some links to the research support. And obviously, if they're a professional staff member, it's a different welcome as well, because a lot of the professional staff don't actually know that they can use the library as well. So that's also a basic introduction to the library for them.
Right.
And library staff are free to make their own templates as well. So there's no prescription for that.
Okay, beautiful. A question from Leanne. Thank you so much for sharing your processes. Do you use a client management system as well as the spreadsheet list of new staff so that you can record follow-up interactions?
Not at this stage, but we've been talking around getting something like that. Especially as we're moving some of our processes together with our two teams. I don't know anything more about that than you do.
Yeah,
probably.
I think that we did have to come up with something rather quickly that would work, quick and efficient. And so obviously there's been a few other things that have been a priority in the last couple of months. But we are constantly evaluating what we're doing, especially when it comes to the follow-up and the feedback, to make sure that we're getting all of that information in one place.
Great. Question from Beck. Do you keep track of any research outputs produced with your assistance?
Yeah, we're very much aware of what impact the work that we're doing is having. And so we've managed to develop enough of a rapport with our researchers that they let us know how they've gone, or we see the information in other more formal communications. But yeah, we certainly do follow up the impact that any of our reports have had, how they've gone with PhD, how they're going, and that's all part of the service as well.
Great. Guido has a question. Do you see any difference between faculties on the response? Are some more likely to respond than others?
Yeah, I'm not actually sure. I haven't actually tracked that one. I would imagine there'll be some that probably feel like they don't need our help, and there'll be some that are like, oh, a person that can help me. Yes. It really depends what they're doing. Obviously, if they're sometimes in maybe some of the sciences where they're not they're not requiring any help with reading lists because they've got a textbook, we might not hear back from them. But like we sort of mentioned, even if we don't hear back from them immediately with that new academics one, it gives them a point of contact, and they'll sort of think to themselves, oh, someone contacted me from the library. Maybe I'll contact that person now that I actually have a question. But yeah, that would be something interesting to look at, to see how that tracked across those different discipline areas.
Yeah, maybe something for the future.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're noticing in our team at the moment also is that some of the sciences, pure sciences, who have been in their lab and doing their lab work that are not there at the moment are now coming to talk to us more than they might have beforehand. And they are using that initial outreach email to get in touch.
That's really great. Becca's got another question. Do you have a shared space where you store everything, like emails, completed templates, etc.?
Yeah, so we use our library SharePoint. We've got a page on there where we keep a master spreadsheet that everyone else can access and edit. We keep the templates, and we keep a sort of procedural document in there. And then Linda and I have a folder in our shared drive, which is a bit more sort of the back end of the work, where we keep the raw data stuff that comes from the original spreadsheet and any working documents. But it's all available, so if either of us wasn't there for some reason, someone else could get at it. Yeah.
Anthony from, I think it's from Newcastle, yes. Anthony says, great, thanks for that. Here at Newcastle, we have a similar approach. The question, how do you count a consult quantitatively, and do you collect any qualitative stats on the nature of the contact? And if so, how is this info used?
Currently, we're recording information in a couple of different places, so we're still trying to come up with the best way to make it all work for the two teams. And so I know that in my team, we create jobs in a log, and so all the information is put in there, and that's then taken by higher levels from a statistic point of view. Anna?
So the Learning and Teaching Partnerships team, we use Lib Insights to log all of our team's inquiry stats, and we include new academic consultation or new staff consultation as one of those fields. So I was able to just draw a list of how many we'd had. So if someone is going for a new staff consultation, that's a specific interaction where they take a checklist. They'll run through a series of points to make sure that everything's covered in that initial meeting. And then there's a range of other interactions. I think that someone at the moment in our planning and governance team is looking at aligning all of our library statistics. So we're holding off on trying to do anything with ours at the moment until we know what's happening from above. So.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. Graham is asking if you would like to comment more about the networked way of working between different library sections on this program.
I'll take this one. Okay.
Sure.
So network ways of working is one of our key aims in this whole process. So coming together from my research partnerships team with the learning and teaching partnerships team, we also network with collections and access as well. And so there is this constant ability to be able to work with the different people within the library and trying to get them involved as well, to be able to have an outreach process that showcases what we can do. Sometimes it might not be that first email, but often it also comes through in follow-up emails and consultations and things like that as well.
And yeah, I'll just add that networked ways of working is one of our key library goals. So we work across 5 different, 6, how many campuses do we have? 5 different campuses, I believe. I'll probably be corrected if I'm miscounted. But we make use of Zoom, we make use of Microsoft Teams. We were already aiming for networked ways of working before we were all regional campuses of one. Basically, I think it's really important that we all know what each other does as well. So Linda just mentioned a few of our different teams, but for example, we might need to refer a researcher to the data management team. We might need to refer someone who wants support for their students to our co-curricular team, you know, directing them, knowing what services they offer for the students to make sure that it all just sort of goes around in a big circle and everyone knows what each other's doing.
Yeah, that's really crucial. Beck is wondering, do you advertise these services as being something that you do, like via faculty or school emails?
I think it's something that we just try to get on top of straight away. So as soon as we get a list, and sometimes we're getting in touch with people quite quickly given the information that we have. And so, I don't know, Anna, have you gone through a process of advertising this or?
No, we did for a while. At one point, maybe the year before last or last year, we talked about running like an induction, a new staff induction, but we didn't have anyone have any uptake in it. So we've found that the individual approach seems to work best. We were involved with, there is a university-wide new staff induction program, and we are, I believe, involved with that as well. So, but it's not specifically related to our brief new academics process. This is really just about those individual connections and that building of relationships at that sort of level.
Yeah. Dahlia is saying, you mentioned earlier about sharing the workload. Does this mean that other library staff besides library research and learning advisors can assist with engaging academics? For example, staff of a lower hue and things like that?
It's usually just between the 2 teams and also our regional coordinators as well. So from our Mildura and Shepparton campuses, those staff members, there is only one of them. So they are not technically in our whole team, but they would work with us with that as well. But it's not, yeah, it's not really, I guess it's not really something that would be needed, I guess, but obviously we'd be open to working with anyone if they can come up with a good idea of ways of communicating with people as well.
But the
At
workload
this
is enough to
stage,
manage within your teams.
yeah,
Sorry,
and
Linda.
at this
Yeah.
stage, it's very much about the service that I can provide to you. And so if I'm working with a researcher, it is about promoting and advertising the services that we can do. I guess by having that personalised approach, you've got that one person they can get back in touch with, and it contains it in some way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we talked about, I guess, sharing the responsibility. It's we send out a list to everyone, and it's their responsibility to look at the list, see who's in their discipline areas, and then contact those people. And it's not, you know, it's something that everyone can do. It's not going to be me and Linda formally contacting everyone and saying this is introducing to this person. I think we have at times tried doing that sort of thing, and it can get a bit convoluted. So it's best if it's just the person that contacts them first is the person that they come back to.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. We've got one final question here from Kamal. Do you contact new library professional staff as well? Or not only professional library staff, but new library staff as well?
I actually leave them out because they already have a really thorough induction. So, yeah, so all our new library staff members are actually brought in around all of the teams, introduced. They'll often have a little review in our weekly newsletter of who they are, where they've come from, an introduction, and they have a pretty thorough induction, so we don't really need to introduce them to the library as such. But certainly other professional staff members, and I haven't actually met with any recently. I've got a bit behind on my contacting of them, but I've just previously used a mail merge mail out to greet them by name and recognise that they've started. And quite a lot of them will say, oh, I didn't know I could use the library. Can I use the library? And I'm like, sure, come and have a look.
Yeah.
But also, it's also, interestingly, it does work with that advocacy, because we've had professional staff who have then said, oh, actually, the head of department asked me about this thing and I don't know, like, can you tell me how to do this thing in the library? So we've almost got to senior staff that we haven't been able to contact because they were too busy, through their professional colleagues as well. So it's, yeah, I guess that's why it's worth it for us to contact the professional staff as well, rather than focusing solely on the academics.
Yeah, we got one last minute question here from Renee. How do you manage the one personal contact person for staff who are research and teaching?
We communicate well with each other is what it comes down to.
We share.
We share. So the way that it works is that the Learning Partnerships team will send out an email to those who have teaching responsibilities. If there is an academic who is identified as having teaching and research, they include us research advisors into that original email, and they try to set up an initial consultation between the three of us. There's also, that's how it works. Depending on what their priority is, though, they will contact the learning advisor or the research advisor, depending on what they need. And we work closely with our counterparts. My counterpart is for the School of Education's in Albury-Wodonga, so we are very adept to having three-way Zoom meetings, sometimes with people in Bendigo, and we just bounce off each other as required. So it's not as tricky. If anything, I think it works really well because we can focus on the area that they need at that point in time, and they've got two people that they can talk to instead of one.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for that.